What's up everybody, I'm Tim from Timber Ridge Gifts. So in this video we're going to be making pizza candles. Now the main point of the video is to do a demo and give you a few tips and tricks when making candles in these metal containers, but we're going to have a little bit of fun and make them pizza scented. So let's go ahead and check out our containers real quick. Most of you have probably seen these. These are just standard metal containers. Some are aluminum, some are steel with tin plating. They come anywhere from 2 ounce all the way up to 16 ounces and probably bigger. But for this video we've got 8 ounce containers. They are 3 inches wide by 2 inches high, which makes them the perfect size for a scented candle. Now if you've never worked with these before, they're really versatile. They're pretty easy to find, relatively inexpensive. And because they're enclosed, you don't have to deal with a lot of issues that you do with glass containers, like your glass adhesion or your frosting. There's only one drawback with these. That is the rust. Okay, so they don't actually rust. What happens is the caustic chemicals and the fragrance oil will react with the metal on the inside, and it can form like a dark ring around the outer edge of your wax. Basically, it's just discoloring your wax where it touches the metal, but it is the exact color of rust. So people will see that, they'll think the candle is rusted, they'll think it's no good, they won't want to buy it, and you've pretty much ruined yourself. Now, there's no way of knowing beforehand which fragrance oils will cause this. You basically won't know until you do it, and then once it's done, it's kind of ruined. So it's best to take steps to avoid it beforehand. Now, some supply companies will sell these lined, but for some reason that doesn't always work all the time either. So to help avoid that, we're actually going to line the inside of these ourselves. To do that, we're just going to pick up some Mod Podge. You can get that at pretty much any department store, any craft store. You want to make sure you get the matte finish. Now this stuff is non-toxic, non-flammable. It's not going to affect our candle in any way. And once it dries, it's going to be spread so thin that we're not even going to be able to tell it's there anyway. So all we want to do is just take a foam craft brush. Just get a little bit on there. And we're just going to lightly coat the insides. Like I said, we're going to spread this so thin that we really don't even know it's there. Once it dries, you won't be able to see it. It's not going to react with your candle in any way. It's not flammable. It's not toxic. So basically, once it dries, we can forget about it. And it's going to help with that rust issue. I'm just going to finish out the rest of the tins we're going to use today. Alright, so we'll give these about 10 minutes to dry, then we'll be ready to add our wicks. So our Mod Podge is dried. These are going to be completely sealed now. We won't have to worry about the rust or the discoloration issue. I know some people are probably going to ask me where I got these. These come from specialtybottle.com. I'll leave links to everything in the video description. So now we're going to go ahead and add our wicks. To do that, we're just going to do it the old school way, just using the plastic straw. Now you can use whatever you like to stick your wicks. You can use glue dots or wick stickers or a hot glue gun. Anything you prefer to use will actually work as long as it sticks your wick. For this project, I'm going to be using the wick stickers from Rustic Essentials. A lot of different companies sell these. I prefer the ones from Rustic Essentials because they come on sheets rather than long rolls. Just a little bit easier to work with, a little bit easier to manage. So we're just going to take our wick, load it into the straw. In case you're wondering about my wick size, for the 3 inch wide, 2 inch tall container, we're going to be using Eco 14 wicks, which I got from candlesupply.com. So we're just going to take our wick sticker, attach it to our wick, line it up in the center, and that one's ready to go. Just going to go ahead and finish out the rest of them. Okay, now that they're all wicked, we'll go ahead and set them with our wick bars. Now whenever you set your wick bar, you don't want it super tight. You don't want to take it and just pull it as tight as you can and jam that wick bar in there. You want to leave just a tiny bit of slack in that wick, because what's going to happen is as your wax cools, it's inevitably going to shrink. And what will happen is that top layer of wax will have cooled. It'll start to shrink a little bit, so it'll shrink down. That entire top layer will shrink down except for that little bit that dried around the wick. It'll actually break off and you'll have like a little indentation or hole around your wick. Easiest way to avoid that, just leave your wick bar just loose enough to where it barely rattles. We don't want it just completely just sitting there not doing anything. We still want it holding the wick, but we want enough slack in it to where as it shrinks, that wick can move just the tiniest bit so we don't end up with that indentation. So these are all wicked, ready to be turned into candles. To do that, we need to melt down our wax. Let's go ahead and move over to my big 40-pound wax melter. So this is my big 40-pound wax melter. It's what I use for most of my projects. Knowing a lot of the videos, I'm just using the double burner on the table. That's just for video purposes. This is mainly what I use. If you guys want to see a better demonstration of this, check out the unboxing video I did when I first got it. But my wax is melted down, so we're ready to go and fill up our pouring pitcher. To do that, I've got my scale set down below it. I'm going to set my pouring pitcher on the scale beneath the pouring spout. I'm going to turn my scale on, zero off the weight. Now I can just let it pour, let it fill up to the weight I want. Once I get to where I want, I can just shut it off and we'll be ready to go. And right at 4 pounds. If you guys are doing huge projects, you definitely want to check out one of these. Definitely worth the investment. Like I said, you can melt up to 40 pounds of wax in it. It'll keep it at a constant temperature. Doesn't really take all that long to melt it down. I can melt 40 pounds down in roughly about an hour, which I can keep at that constant temperature all day. As I use it, I can keep refilling it, and I can basically have 40 pounds of melted wax at my disposal all day. Just keep those projects rolling. So I've got my 4 pounds melted down that I'm going to use for this project. It's already at temperature. So let's go ahead and head back to the table. We'll go ahead and add our dye and fragrance oil. So our wax is heated to 150. It's time to go ahead and add our dye and fragrance oil. For the dye, we're going to be using red from AAA Candle Supply. We're going to give that a good stir. And now the fun part. We're going to go ahead and add our fragrance oil. We're making pizza scented candles. To do that, I'm going to be using pizza fragrance oil from the candle maker store. If you guys have never smelled this, it smells just like a supreme pizza. It's got that really sharp Italian herb spice. It's going to go great with these candles. So we got 4 pounds of wax, 8 ounces of fragrance oil. It's going to give us a 12-pound fragrance load. For the wax, we're going to be using a 464 that I got from Rustic Essentials. Alright, now we're just going to stir that up real good. A lot of people that have seen me stir in some of my other videos have asked if I was worried about introducing a lot of air to the wax. I'm not really. If you've never seen what I stir with, I'll show you. It's actually just a metal barbecue skewer. Just enough to get the wax stirred up at the bottom. Not a lot of surface area. Doesn't really aerate the wax at all. I don't want to get too crazy with it. But because it is so small, I can stir pretty aggressively with it. Not have to worry about introducing too much air to the wax. Not to mention it's such a small surface area, it's really easy to clean. Right, so that's mixed up pretty good. We're going to let that sit and cool just a bit. Once we get to our pouring temperature, we'll be ready to finish out our candles. So we've let it cool to about 100 degrees. Now we're ready to go and pour our candles. To do that, I could just take the pouring pitcher, just pour it straight in. This one's a little bit different. This is actually an 8-pound pouring pitcher versus the 4-pound pouring pitcher that you normally see. I still could pour with this, but the spout's just a little bit different. I'm kind of clumsy anyway, so what I'm going to do just to make my life a little bit easier is I'm going to transfer it into this plastic funnel pitcher. As long as I pour it nice and slow, it doesn't really create any extra issues as far as adding any air to the wax and fragrance oil mixture. Now I've got this long spout where I can very accurately and evenly pour each candle. Just helps me out. This works great if you're doing smaller things such as wax melts, or if you're just clumsy like me and want to cut down on messes. This is a great thing to use. Let's go ahead and zoom in and check it out. So now that I've got it in this smaller pitcher with the funnel, just makes my life that much easier. When it runs out, we can just refill it. And just like any other project I do, I always have extras on hand, just in case I have extra. Go ahead and top them off. Make sure they're all even. There we go. Another great thing about these metal containers is most of them have a ridge that holds the lid in place. You can see that ridge outline on the inside. Makes the perfect fill line for these candles. So we've got them poured. Now we're just going to do one last shake, make sure none of our wick bars got all crazy on us. Now we're just going to leave these alone, let these turn into candles. So my candles have completely dried. We're ready to finish them up. Let's go ahead and pull our wick bars. Now we're ready to go ahead and trim our wicks. Before we do that, let's go ahead and zoom in and see just how pretty those turned out. So you can see that Alex method works just like a charm. If you guys want to learn more about that, just check out the video right there. Pouring cool and allowing these to cool evenly will eliminate so many of the issues that you guys are having, especially when really the only issue we have to worry about now is smooth tops. Alright, so we've got our candles set. We're ready to go and trim our wicks. To do that, we can use a variety of different things. I've used just about everything you can over the years. Anywhere from just wire trimmers, toenail clippers work good. Wick trimmers actually work really good. The kind that you buy for trimming your wicks after you've burnt your candle. These can be a little hard to manage just because they're so tall and lanky. But the great thing about these is the bottom of them measures exactly 1/4 inch. So there's really no way that you can cut it too long or too short if you're right on top of the wax. But I found that the quickest and easiest thing to do is just use a good pair of scissors. Main thing is we want to trim our wicks to 1/4 inch. If you need to, you can measure that off before you trim. But I've done enough of these over the years, I've gotten pretty good at eyeballing it. So let's go ahead and trim these wicks so we can move on to the next step. Alright, wicks are all trimmed. I'm going to go ahead and throw our lids on them so I don't accidentally poke them or drop anything in them and mess them up. And now we're going to go ahead and throw our labels on them. I'm using Avery labels. These are awesome. You can print these yourself. They've got free design software on their website. You don't have to download anything. You can design everything on their website. And all of your saved work basically stays on their server. So you don't need anything special on your end, just a little bit of creativity and time. And you can create your own awesome labels for a fraction of what you can actually buy them for. But if you're not set up with a good printer, you can actually design them on their website and still buy it from them. I'll leave the website link in the description. If you guys haven't checked them out, you definitely need to. It's a great place to get your labels. So we're going to go ahead and label all of these up. And for our final step, we're going to add our warning labels to the bottom. If you guys want to learn more about warning labels, make sure you check out my video. But let's go ahead and get these added to these. Alright, these are all ready. One last thing we've got to do. Smells just like pizza. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know if you have any questions. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, turn on the notification button so you know when I drop new videos. Thanks for watching, everybody.